blood-stained wound. He took my shame away. In Calvary, He claimed my victory. Oh, the rugged cross, my Redeemer set me free. In Calvary, my Jesus wept for me. The blood-stained wound covered my iniquities. In Calvary, He claimed my victory. The blood-stained wound where He endured all the pain. The blood-stained wound where my Savior was slain. The blood-stained wound where my Jesus' mercy reigns. The blood-stained wound in Calvary. Old rugged cross, I let my good friend die. In Calvary, the guilt that I denied. The blood-stained wound, I've seen forgiveness in His eyes. In Calvary, He claimed my victory. The blood-stained wound where He endured all the pain. The blood-stained wound where my Savior was slain. The blood-stained wound where my Jesus' mercy reigns. The blood-stained wound in Calvary. The blood-stained wound where He endured all the pain. The blood-stained wound where my Savior was slain. The blood-stained wound where my Jesus' mercy reigns. The blood-stained wound in Calvary. Old rugged cross, salvation belongs to God. In Calvary, my Jesus died for me. The blood-stained wound, He took my shame away. In Calvary, He claimed my victory.
So delighted, friends, you can join us again this month. I brought you to a wee place here. This used to be an old glass house here on the farm, but the glass house, the wooden bit, got so dangerous we had to take it down, but the wall still remains. And this brings back so many memories to me. I used to sit in here with my dad. My dad was a great boy for growing tomatoes and stuff, and he used to sit in here for hours and growing those lovely, great smelling tomatoes or whatever. Maybe that's why I'm really addicted to tomato sauce to this very day. I'm addicted to the Heinz tomato ketchup. It was Henry Ford at one time said that experience is the harvest of life, and every harvest begins with sowing. And one of the very first stories that I ever shared on a wee recording was the story of, in fact, Henry Heinz himself, this Christian man who developed one of the largest food producing companies in the world. And he built the whole company up with Christian characteristics. In other words, he was a very solid Christian man. But I love it's a fascinating story of Henry Hines, how it all began, that how his mum and dad moved to a bigger house with a big garden. In fact, basically about 4 acres of a garden, and Henry, even who was 8 years of age, helped with the vegetables, and he sold the surplus round his neighbours. And by the time he got to 10 years of age, he was given 3/4 of an acre of his own, plus a wheelbarrow. And that got him started. At the age of 12, he had 3.5 acres, and by the profits he was able to buy a horse and a cart. And he used to deliver the produce all around the area. But he wasn't only content with selling his own stuff, he would have bought stuff for the furthest away places, and the way back home again, he always made sure the cart was empty by the time he got home. So that's really how it all started. At 17 years of age, he had this notion that horseradish was a very hard product for the housewife to prepare the different sauces and stuff. And as they watched his mother preparing it, he thought, I could do something like that. And that's really how it all started. But you know, he had one saying, quality, my friends, is to a product what the character is to a man. And he realised that all the other manufacturers were putting all the ingredients into dark brown bottles and glass jars, all brown. The housewife couldn't really see what was inside it. So he decided, from the quality point of view, that he would get the very best clear glass, that every housewife, when she looked at the product, would realise there was nothing impure in it. It was the very best of quality. So it was that sort of an idea that he certainly built up his business very, very fast. In his 20s, he got married to a girl called Sally. She was from County Down here, and they settled up and they had 5 children. But you know, it wasn't all success story, because in the peak of his period, the Great Recession came, and some of the banks began to collapse. Also, he made a very bad deal. He made a contract, I think it was for cucumbers, at a very high price. And that particular year, there was a real glut of them, and he could hardly give them away. So he was really stretched financially. And in fact, once the rumours came that he was getting stretched financially, then of course all his so-called friends turned their back on him basically and left him till it. And you know, he went bankrupt. And that was one of the hardest periods of his life. There's one Christmas in particular, he was so low and so depressed, he could hardly get out of bed, he had no money. They hadn't even money for food, never mind presents or anything else. But his mother, his loving Christian mother, gave him a wee card. And on the card she wrote this prayer. And the theme of the prayer was, the Lord will provide. The Lord will provide. And as he read this prayer, he felt a sense inside him that God hadn't finished with him yet. It wasn't to end here in bankruptcy. It wasn't to end here. And the first thing he did was he gave himself a good shaking, and he got hold of a diary. And in this wee diary he wrote MO, moral obligations. Moral obligations. This was the Christian heart coming through, that he was decided, even though he wasn't legally responsible, he was declared bankrupt to pay off his debts, but he was determined that every single penny that he owed would be paid back step by step and bit by bit. And friends, once the product started to come again, he started back at the beginning again. And you know, he'd learned a lot. He was humbled. You know, it was Mark Twain that said, if you get kicked with a mule the second time, then you haven't learned nothing. But he had learned a lot. He learned to trust very, very few people. He realised that there are very few friends. When the money ran done and he was declared bankrupt, he had no friends really. And a lot of the people turned their back on him. But as he started to pay the people back bit by bit, the people all come around. In fact, he helped out others he forgave others who were really hard on him and told lies against him and everyone else, that when they saw that he was trying to do, in fact, he bailed some of them out also from their own troubles and financial worries and concerns. That was the moral of the man. And from that small beginning again, the second time, he became the largest food producer in the world. The Lord will provide. And as that wee theme, my friends, I want to leave with you this month. The Lord will provide. You know, the Lord knows your need this month, whatever it might be. I'm sitting out here in that old glass house, you know, and I remember my dad so well, just sitting in here in the heat. And I used to be blowing, you might say, with the heat in here as we grew the tomatoes and we grew lettuce in here and the different vegetables. But you know, the one thing that even we knew, and certainly the farming people knew, if you don't use good seed, you can't expect a good harvest. You use the very best seed that you can. And that was the Henry Hines' motive as well, that one of the best quality seed from the soil to the kitchen table. That was his motivation as a child of God. And you know, I was just sitting here thinking a minute or two before I switched this wee camera on, a lovely poem. It's a lovely poem I want to finish with. It's a lovely poem by a man called Walter Huntley, and he lived for 100 years. He was born in 1908 and passed into heaven in 2008. And here's the poem. I stood one day at Calvary, where Jesus bled and died. I never knew he loved me so. For me, he was crucified. And as I stood there in my sin, his love reached down to me. Oh, the shame that filled my soul that day at Calvary. I knelt one day at Calvary. My eyes were full of tears. To think such love I had refused through all these wasted years. And as I knelt, I heard him say, I did it all for thee. Oh, the love that filled my soul that day at Calvary. I prayed one day at Calvary. I'm thine forevermore. Lord, forgive me for all my sin, my lost estate restored. And as I prayed, he gave to me salvation full and free. Oh, the peace that filled my soul that day at Calvary, my friend. That's the peace that we're praying for you this month. May God in his grace and his mercy come very close to you and to your family in these days. From the old glass house this day, may God bless you all. God bless. God bless. The Lord will provide.
You gave me hope and a burning desire. In your providence, you have called me for this plan. It doesn't matter to you if I am a sinner, weak young believer. Lord, I humbly come to sing for life, for I will grow to glorify, spread my wings to soar in the sky. I will be able to know and perceive the meaning of life, 'cause deep inside you keep me satisfied. In my time I seek for life. You made my life and struggle a blessing. From here to eternity, Lord, guide me as I sing for life. Here I give my all in service to you. I rest my soul, you'll be my refuge all through. And I'll be a vessel as I sing for life. For I will grow to glorify, spread my wings to soar in the sky. I will be able to know and perceive the meaning of life, 'cause deep inside you keep me satisfied. In my time I seek for life, for I will grow to glorify, spread my wings to soar